Thanks everybody for joining us. I don't know if EEBC, do you guys need to do your normal disclaimer thing?
Well,
Patricia does, or
yeah,
are we okay?
it's the
No collusion.
Right. No collusion. We're as a nonprofit, we are EEBC is not engaged in any anti-competitive practices. So no discussion of pricing and or anything that can be interpreted as collusion amongst us on this call. Yeah, unfortunately, folks, Patricia couldn't be on the call. I don't know if that has been said yet. She had a doctor's appointment that she couldn't miss. So, you know, it'd be nice to have her perspective on kind of the overview of the process where we are with the DSM process now. But I think probably Howard can, when he's able to join us, can probably give the same overview.
And we could just probably jump in and he'll be on in a second. But long story short, we're at the point where Xcel has filed their 500-page ruling or proposed plan. And we're at the point now where we can make comments and become interveners in this and try and move the needle in the direction that we think it needs to go. So we're at the point right now where we need to basically review what they've sent, take a look at it, and then think about what we want to send. We have to turn everything in on October 3rd,
yeah.
Which is obviously coming up on us very quickly here. I mean, obviously we've gone through the survey, we've done all that, we've talked, but there is like oh, there's Howard, he's joining us right now. Okay. Hi, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Maybe, I don't know if everybody knows who Howard is. Maybe Howard, if you don't mind, giving just a quick introduction of who you are, what your history is and stuff.
Yeah, sure. Hi, folks. Howard Geller. I'm right now a consultant to EEBC, on board to be the expert witness in both this 2023 Xcel DSM plan docket and also in the DSM and beneficial electrification strategic issues docket. I'm an independent consultant and formerly the executive director of SWEEP, the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, but I stepped down from full-time work at SWEEP about a year and a half ago now, and partly retired and keeping my hand in the energy efficiency policy and regulatory world here in Colorado, and pleased to be working directly with EEBC.
Awesome. We're happy to have you helping us too. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say, Howard, that you've been pretty much involved in the rebates here in Colorado since almost the inception of them, right? And are a big reason that a lot of the rebates are where they're at, and that we have rebates here and things like that. That SWEEP was a major player for, and still is, for many years, basically advocating for energy efficiency and DSM programs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Gratitude, Howard.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
So
you're welcome.
And again, thanks for joining us. So I was just trying to tell everybody, Howard, that, and correct me if I'm wrong on anything I say today, because obviously not as schooled in how all the processes work and stuff. But as we're at right now, Xcel has filed their plan for 2023, right? It's about a 500-page plan. You and some other folks have gone through that plan and looked at it. There's certain section of that plan that apply to the lighting industry and what we do as companies that are, so a lot of the people that are on this call today are contractors and lighting efficiency professionals. And so a lot of what's in that plan doesn't necessarily apply exactly to what we do, but there's sections of that plan that do apply to what we do. And I can bring that plan up and show you, but it's basically pages roughly 65 through 71, as best I can tell, within that document that talks about the lighting. As I read through it, and I didn't have a ton of time to read through it, but as I read through it, I didn't see a lot of teeth as to what they were actually doing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a little vague to me as far as
Yeah.
like what their plan is and
Mhm.
what things they're proposing to change and stuff like that. Is that true, Howard?
Yeah, the basic idea here is they're in the process of implementing their 21-22 plan, a 2-year plan. And they're basically proposing more or less a 1-year extension of the 21-22 plan for another year, with the different changes they've made. As they go along, they do these 60-day notices, and they can change, add measures, modify rebate levels. They have a lot of flexibility as they go along. And they're not proposing any big changes for 23. They're tweaking budgets and participation targets. And so, I think if you're happy with the current commercial lighting program and the small business program, I know there's also what they call small business solutions, which is the way they reach the small commercial customers. If you're happy with that as it is, it's going to continue. If you are not happy with some of the features, some of the details, kind of this is a time to take a shot at getting some modifications, because they need to get the 23 plan approved by the PUC, EEBC, SWEEP, and others are interveners, and they generally want a settlement agreement. They don't want to have a fight at the commission over the details in this 500-page plan. And in the past, we've always reached agreements about these plans, which means we have a little bit of leverage. We can bring some proposals to the table as to changes we would like to see, negotiate with Xcel and the other parties. Xcel comes to the table, moderately open-minded. They don't say yes to everything that's suggested, but they know they can't say no to everything that's suggested by the interveners. So, we have an opportunity to get some modifications. We can't totally redesign the programs, but get some modifications. For example, if you think there's some additional measures that could go into the, they have this category of instant rebates where you don't have to go through the whole application process. It's, at the time of sale or install with the distributors. If you think there's some more measures that can go into that area, that would be helpful. We could bring that up. If you think there's, areas like in controls where they should be bumping up the incentives, we could talk about that. But, that's kind of the background, and I'll stop talking and let you guys.
Howard, had Patricia shared with you the results of the survey we did amongst our lighting members?
No.
So, okay, so we just real quick, bring up the speed. We had, we kind of started kicking this whole lag group off was, this discussion about what could Xcel do to strengthen the program so that we could essentially sell more energy efficient lighting and they can achieve their emissions reduction targets. We came up with some basic ideas, distilled it down into a survey that we distributed to our lighting members, and then got those results back, which we shared with Xcel. So,
Okay.
And we've had a couple of conversations with Xcel prior to this, and they at the time seemed quite open-minded. This is well before. This is when was the? I can't remember the last time we did it. Was it the beginning of the year or March? I can't remember the first
with
time.
With Xcel, it's been like 6 months ago, roughly.
Yeah, exactly. So, and they seem open-minded and receptive to what we were what we were kind of putting out there, you know, some of the things with the existing prescriptive rebate program that we thought, in particular, that could be strengthened.
But
I think, and hopefully I'm not talking out of school here, but I think most of us contractors here in the LAG group are primarily concerned with the prescriptive rebate program. You know, the instant rebate program we probably engage in, but to a lesser extent, unless I'm just self-disclosing. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. But you know, and I thought we'd gotten some traction, and we got some. You know, we said Xcel asked for some details. We sent more details back to them, examples of things, etc. And I thought we, you know, we're off to kind of a good start. Had another meeting, a smaller meeting with them, and it's been kind of quiet on the Western Front. Is that right, Scott? Would you say the same?
Yeah, and you know, I think, you know, they were willing to listen to us. I'm not sure, you know, our opinion on where the market should go versus their opinion on where the market would go were divergent, I would say. So I think that's where this process comes in, and where we can maybe have some influence on the direction that the rebates go. So, you know, I think that's what we have to decide as a group now is, and there's a process that I think you guys all got the email on it, but here, I'll just share my screen real quick. This is the document that hopefully you guys can see that. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the document that they had sent out it's the 500-page document that's got their plan in it. And my understanding too is that this plan, as Howard was saying, this is an extension of 21-22 that will take us through 2023, and then there'll be a larger plan and more bigger changes, is my understanding, for like what they're going to file for in like 2024 through, I'm not sure how many years it's going to be, but there'll be a bigger one that happens after this. So this is kind of like a preliminary one.
And that's the one that we, you know, that we thought we would be influencing, not so much next year, but the 1-2 years from now. Right.
So
yeah, if I can jump in, I would say, I think, you know, some of the things that you've brought up with them that they're mulling over, you know, this is a good opportunity to bring those up again in the context where they can't just blow us off, us meaning all of the energy efficiency businesses. And then, you know, a year from now, we'll have a new, I think it'll be a 2-year plan for 24 and 25. And that might be, you know, the next crack at that will be the next crack at the apple for more significant changes.
Gotcha. And so in this plan, so I had a quick question for you, Howard, and I don't know if you can answer this. So I thought this was interesting that their plan now, it does in the plan have something for LED street lighting. This is like mostly they're municipal, the ones that a lot of times they own these street lights. There's not much detail in here as to how this program is going to work. And as a contractor personally, who have the equipment and the experience to, you know, do the traffic control and the bucket trucks to do this kind of LED street lighting type work, I would be curious to know how they plan on implementing this LED street lighting program, or if they're going to try and run this through their line extension program, which Sturgeon owns that contract. But I would advocate for businesses like ours to be able to participate in this program too. And so I don't know if that's something that we can put into our request, if that's a request for disclosure from them as to like, how do you plan on implementing this program? Because this is pretty big, you know, it says the company owns, and I think a lot of you knew this, but they own 95,000 Cobra Head street lights, and they're going to look at changing them. They're forecasting 4,000 of them to be done in 2023. So these are obviously a fairly big opportunity for companies to participate in and to maybe do some of this work. And I'm kind of curious to know if they're planning on handling all this in-house, or if there's going to be opportunities for contractors to participate in this program too.
Scott, first of all, this is an ongoing program. This is not new for 2023. So if we have questions, we can get responses as to kind of how the current program works. I don't think they're proposing changes in the program compared to the program that's been going on, I think, for 3 or 4 years. And so the program is for, local governments that own. So yes, local governments where the company owns the streetlights, right?
Yeah. Company
There's
meaning Xcel, by the way, right?
Right, Xcel, right. And as they say, there's about 95,000 of those. Many municipalities have taken over, have bought the streetlights from Xcel, but there's some places where Xcel still owns the streetlights, and they're willing to replace them and I think the customer has to pay a higher rate to get them replaced. Of course.
Is that your sense why municipalities are buying them back, or so that they have control over them and they can change them out faster? Because this rollout from Xcel is not hyperspeed, right?
Right, that's right. 4,000 is not
I think it's a combination. For the record, because I do know a little bit about this. So it's a combination of things. One, a lot of them want to convert to higher efficiency products, but two, they're sort of at Xcel's. Like if anything, like if somebody knocks down a pole or something like that, or a line gets cut underground or something like that, a lot of these municipalities are frustrated with the response time of getting stuff fixed, and they want to take some of that back and take control over some of that.
Right.
So,
and I think they have to pay Xcel to take them over, and so there's some municipalities that just don't want to spend the money.
Right.
Kind of buy out the contractor, what have you, right?
Right. They have to buy the infrastructure, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I understand it. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I would have a question about that. And then the next section, on page 67 goes on to talk about their lighting efficiency program, and that kind of stuff. So it's worth folks, I think, reading through that. Like I said, it doesn't really talk about any changes. And I think, Howard, as you said, like there's really not a whole lot of changes that they're proposing for this next one. So that's where we would come in. And we've been given this document here, if I can find it on my computer.
And there's no real details in there. There's no meat on the bones in this. It's very high level descriptive of this is just kind of what we do.
Well, yes and no. I mean, there are tables at the back, pages 493 through 498.
Yeah, I can show you
list measure by measure the rebate amount, the participation target for 2023.
Is this it here? Yeah.
This
is it. So you have to go in there and put on your magnifying glass and
oops, sorry, I just went.
But even this, page. As we kind of talked about this, I guess it was last week, and we were trying to sort of decipher what this means, because even this is not really detailed on exact, what rebate amounts are given for particular products. Rather, do you know if this is historical, or is this projecting into the future what they anticipate the amount of dollars in the energy savings will be? Do you know, Howard?
These are projections for 2023. Pretty much, I'm sure they use the averages for 2021. When you're right, sometimes they have they aggregate many projects to get an average rebate amount.
Right, and I think as best I could interpret it, it looks like what it does is it sort of looks at all, probably a whole bunch of, if not all of the projects that file for this particular type of rebate. And then, this is the average amount of rebate and the average amount of energy savings.
Right,
per, per project, right? Okay.
right,
Okay. Which
Yeah.
is very
Which,
different than the nuts and bolts of the exact, per item rebate that we're
Right.
kind of looking for, right?
right. You can
What-
look at, retrofit high bay, the average rebate is $94. Well, there's probably different wattages that have
Exactly.
different rebates, and this is
Right.
just an average, so.
Right.
yeah, that makes this chart reasonably difficult to decipher, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're looking at, who knows how many of the lower wattage versus the medium wattage versus the
Right.
high wattage, like how they're averaging this
Right.
and things
What-
like that, so
It- What I would say to you guys is just assume they're the same as they currently are next
Okay.
year. And if there's one or two or three or four areas where you think they're just way under budget on terms of rebates, where they're not moving the market because the rebate's too small, let's bring that up.
Yeah, well, that was the survey. And,
Yeah.
and
Okay,
we
well,
have
I'll
done-
get
but-
I'll get a copy from Patricia and
Yeah, we can send it. I mean,
or send it to me. Yeah.
we definitely did identify some things that we feel like could really use some additional, larger rebates
Yep,
because now, oftentimes they're inconsequential, right?
right.
So,
Okay.
and do you think that we should, as a do these individually, or should we try and come to, we don't have much time on this, really, is the honest truth of it, because
Right.
it's due October 3rd. Should we individually do these, or should we try and do this as a group and submit it?
It would be better as a group. I mean, if I get 4 or 5 different sets of recommendations from lighting contractors that are different, it's going to be hard for me to know, what to,
Which one to go after?
which to put it, I'm going to, Mark Detsky and Patricia and I are going to write a
Yeah.
memo with, 15 to 20 requests for changes in the plan. And that will get submitted to Xcel and the other parties. That's what we need to do before the settlement discussions begin. So I need
Right.
help from you guys as to kind of exactly what to put in. So it'd be much better if one of you can start a draft or, just work off the survey and come up with a collective set of recommendations and, try to prioritize them. What are your top 3 requests, lighting folks?
And, I'd be curious to ask the group that question, kind of maybe just go around and ask the group that question. But before I do that, I want to ask, my understanding is lighting still carries a major part of the load for these programs, right? And as
Yeah.
best I can tell, it's either the top or second as far as like where they're getting their efficiency from and
Yes.
their goals.
Savings.
But at the same time, they're well behind what their goals are.
right.
So in my opinion, there's an opportunity for Xcel to either increase rebates or maybe change the way that they're doing these rebates. Do you agree with that, Howard? I guess is my question.
Yeah,
Considering
I think you're right. The target they're supposed to be hitting is 500 gigawatt hours per year. The business lighting program is 90. The projection is 90. And the small business energy solutions, which is mostly lighting, is 35. So that's, 125 out of the 500. That's a quarter of the total is commercial lighting. And if you can come up with suggestions that are going to move them from 125 to 150, they will be open to that. It's not like they're blowing the targets out of the water. In 2021, the last, full year, they came up short.
Right.
They didn't make 500.
And this year, they're way short, which is why they have the
Yeah.
bonus going on right now.
Bonuses going on, right? And maybe it's like we need bonuses year round next year.
Well, but yeah, just recalibrate, right? Don't call it a
Yeah.
bonus. Just give it it's a bigger,
That's right.
exactly.
make it
They
permanent.
underspent their total budget by a big margin last year. It's not like they ran out of money. They had
Right.
plenty of money and they didn't make their target. And instead they were approved for, I think, $90 million budget and they spent like 75 million. know, all of their programs combined.
It-
So they're,
Yeah, that would be one of my top suggestions actually, is the, just putting the 25% in as a permanent ongoing or ongoing level. It's a, I understand what they're trying to do, like, hey, we're cutting it off in November. So they're trying to get, people to get off the fence and make it happen.
Yeah.
Having that deadline does help sometimes, I think, but at the same time, it kind of screws us up as a business
Right.
often as well. Cause we're
Right.
scrambling,
Right.
people are coming in last second, like, hey, can you get this done? Type thing.
Right.
So,
Right. Do it year round and people aren't waiting. You don't have to tell your customers, hey, wait 3 months and you'll get a bonus incentive.
right.
There is a question in the chat box from Denise about horticulture lighting. Denise, can you ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully I'm not throwing a wrench in this. I've only been able to attend a couple of these meetings. I've really been more active in the heat pump action, group meeting. But I work with PACE, Partners for a Clean Environment, which is Boulder County. We implement, rebate programs, and we piggyback a lot of our rebates on top of Xcel's rebates. We do also work with a lot of cannabis, horticulture, type lighting. And my quick question, and forgive me if you guys have already talked about this in other meetings, but is they've moved from a custom, approach to the more prescriptive approach. And you guys are probably familiar, horticulture lighting in general is basically plug and play. It's just like a daisy chain, plug load type lighting, and can be configured in all sorts of ways. And with the new prescriptive rebate, although it makes our lives so much easier in terms of how to rebate these projects or estimate Xcel rebates so that we can add our rebates to them, it does. I was questioning if it's included in this process, in this DSM filing, and in that type of specificity. And if so, if you recall, if they've listed the custom or the prescriptive approach, because my main concern is wattage drop, right? Because people can just certainly add as many lights as they want. The whole point of a cannabis grow operation is production. And so just curious if this is coming up, and if it's too much for this conversation, I don't mind at all if, we table it.
It's in this table. It's I don't know if you can see where I highlighted
Yeah,
here,
I
but
do.
but it is in the table. So I'm assuming it's just an extension of the current program they have, right?
Yeah, and they switched this mid-year, or it's like in July, I think. They switched from the custom approach to this more prescriptive approach. So I'm assuming they're just going to carry that through that prescriptive process.
I wonder these average numbers, like the rebate amount that's showing for like $132, is that based, is largely on the pre-change amount when it was a custom thing. I don't know where this, how this math adds up. I'm not sure how they get to this number.
They probably did analysis before they switched as to the cost effectiveness of switching, and they had an assumption about the average rebate.
Mm-hmm.
I think
because I'm assuming now that it's prescriptive, it's probably much higher now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really, I just was thinking about this in the context of that goal of, the 500 goal.
Yeah.
And are they really going to achieve that with this method, this change in how they're doing rebates?
The idea of year-round bonus, the bonus has become the new norm. That's going to help. That will probably lead to higher rebates here as well as, everywhere else.
I think that, and you'd probably maybe know the answer to this with like actual data, Howard, but like, is it true to say, like, when you raise rebates, typically efficiency adoption goes up? I mean, there's probably a direct correlation, right? There's got to be.
Yes, I think it's just gonna
get people off the fence.
There's more money on the table, and
Right.
The amount, the net amount the customers have to shell out goes down and the payback goes down and
Right.
hopefully it
Yeah,
helps you guys, close the sale.
I would think that, if they were to sort of almost across the board or whatever, or at least the most impactful categories, if they were to increase those, through the 25% or whatever at those, if not everything,
Right.
then, at least until LEDs, have saturated the markets that, that we're 80, 85, 90% of lighting has been converted, then I can see throttling back, but we still have such a long way to go.
Mhm.
Out there.
Yeah.
That seems like the low hanging fruit, to Scott's point, right? That it's still such a big part of where the savings, the energy savings potential is. And we're under tapping it because, where the incentives aren't strong enough for people to jump on board. And as we, not to change the subject and get economic, but as we might be looking at a recession here, and companies are going to be probably throttling back on CapEx spending, they're going to have to sweeten the pot to get people to move, because otherwise, people are going to be keeping their wallets kind of closed.
Right.
Out of fear.
Do you think if we were to submit something like that on permanent 25% bonuses, could we factor things in inflation right now is running, very high with labor, so costs have gone up across the board for material, labor, which makes these projects all the more expensive. Therefore, keeping this bonus in place really is almost just keeping the rebates at the level that they were 2 years, pre-COVID or something.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, I get it. And, I think there'd be a decent chance that they would agree.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know, and if we could, folks that are on the call, what are everybody else's top priorities as far as things that you guys would like to see happen with the program or changes? Who's on the, Mike, what would be yours, just out of curiosity?
I'm sorry?
What would be yours, for example?
The top priorities?
Yeah.
I would fall back to our survey, right? So, our survey results. So, I think we captured things pretty darn well. We talked about, one, simplifying the custom rebate program, but we may not be able to get very far with that. So the next one, we talked about controls, either standalone and network controls. We saw that as a huge opportunity. And we talked about.
Can I jump in, Mike, and
Yeah.
just ask? I totally believe that's the case. Can you talk for a minute or two about what you think they should be doing in the way of modifying their program to get controls adopted to a greater degree?
Yeah, well, I should turn it over to our members, but I think really it's almost negligible, the rebate you get that one stands to get for standalone controls relative to their cost. So right now, the specifics are for either a daylight harvesting control or an aux sensor control, either one, it's what, 5 cents a kilowatt hour. And if you have both, it's 15 cents. I'm sorry, not a kilowatt hour, a watt, 15 cents a controlled watt. Network lighting controls, which are much more expensive, are 40 cents per controlled watt. So when you do the math, whether you're talking about individual standalone controls, for a fixture, you might be getting $3 for the control, and the control itself costs 30, or more installed, or $40, whatever it might be. So, getting $2 to $3 for that is meaningless.
Yeah.
So the customer is looking at, okay, well, why am I going to spend, that much money when you can show over time how it incrementally helps their energy savings, but it's not, it's not as undeniable as just switching from fluorescents to LEDs, you know,
Yeah.
straight up, right?
If we could get them to go to say $10 out of the, 35 or 40, will that
Right.
make a difference?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And the network lighting controls, I mean, which run into the thousands, I mean, Scott, you can speak to it.
Yeah,
Or other folks can speak to it better than I, but
it
yeah, I
needs
mean,
to be higher.
Yeah.
And the one other thing I wanted to mention, and
Especially
they
for
used to do
retrofits.
this. They used to do this where they would provide some design assistance on it.
Mhm.
I think like on those network lighting controls, Howard.
Yeah.
For me personally, one, they take a long time to put them together to figure out exactly what we're going to need, parts and pieces, how it's going to be designed. And then there's commissioning and then training the customer on it, and all those other things that go along with it that make them just that much more complex. So if there was any sort of, for me personally, I
Yeah.
think some sort of design assistance that maybe the customer would pay a little bit for, but they could get some of the costs of designing that system, because a lot of times, sometimes you don't even put it together because you're like it's going to be so time consuming to figure out what the design is going to need to be, and all the different things you're going to need to make it happen. So I would like to see
that. It's a rare customer
that
after you put all that work into it, it's a rare customer that actually says yes to it. So then it just becomes a complete loss.
Yeah.
For us.
Black hole. But I think if they have a little bit of skin in the design payment up front in it, that they would maybe be more likely to have some skin in the game and want to pull the trigger down when you put the package in front of them at a later date too. So that'd be my two things is design assistance and then higher dollar amounts for it if they do choose to go that direction.
Cool. Great.
But that's a
Great.
huge piece of what we think as a company is a direction that the market's going. We're selling more and more of those systems, and the systems have gotten better over the past 3-4 years too, gotten a little more simple and easier to implement, better, and they just work better than
Are
they.
you referring to network controls or just?
I am. Yeah, I'm referring to the network controls. Yeah. I mean, the dummy controls, those have been around for a long time, and they're
Right, of course.
pretty
Occupancy sensors and what have you. Yeah.
well established. It's the network controls that
Right.
really take a lot of thought on how they're going to be implemented.
Although even the standalone controls now are programmable, right? So that requires some education. It's kind of as I think about it, if you introduce something more complex for the customer, right? That's occupies, it's a lot of learning. It's a learning curve for them. It's and they have to remember it, and there's more equipment and stuff that they got to keep track of, and you just make the burden. You increase the burden on the customer. Well, then they're thinking, well, is this worth it? And maybe if if the rebate amount was higher, they might say, oh yeah, this is worth going through all that trouble.
Right.
I was just wondering, if possible, I wanted to comment real quick on those controls before we moved on. I can't remember what Xcel's network control rebate is.
40 cents.
40 cents a watt. Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of match that. So we will actually layer our rebates. We are actually rebating those, but mostly in the city of Boulder because of building performance codes. We also we have 10 cent, per watt control rebate for the aux sensors. And if it's a dual, like photocell aux sensor, will offer, as long as it's functioning that way, we'll offer 15 cents per watt.
On top of what Xcel's giving. So you're doubling. On top of what Xcel's paying. So
so all that's to say, a lot of those are being taken advantage of right now in the city of Boulder because of the performance ordinance. It's very prescriptive, right? It's prescriptive in that they say lighting, you have to do lighting. But when this goes statewide performance and they're really looking at EUI reduction, I see this as a benefit for Xcel to really take that opportunity with controls. Because there are a lot of different measures that building owners are going to be looking at. And I agree with you 100%. If they could bump up the controls rebates while the lighting is already going to happen,
right?
Don't miss that opportunity. I mean, just because it's such a tiny little rebate, Because
Correct.
you're right, we have not seen much since they've changed it and lowered the rebates. Very little action except for the, the Boulder
Yeah.
projects.
I mean, I can see both sides of this, right? On the one hand, I can see that it makes a lot of sense to make the bigger push just to adopt LED, forget controls, just to reduce, by 60 to 80% the load. But the incremental cost, or the incremental benefit from our energy savings realized by these controls, is proportionally smaller, right? On the other hand, if you've got somebody who's willing to convert to LED, you've already got a receptive customer. So you sort of, you've kind of won them over. And if you can get them from 70% to 85% energy reduction by the use of these controls, it kind of gets you there because you've got a partner already, right? A receptive ear. So
Right.
I can see.
Yeah, and that's the time to do it, right? When they're
That's right.
changing out their
Yes.
lighting. That's
For
the
sure.
opportunity. And if you don't get the controls in, then you're not going to get them in.
That's right.
So I mean,
That's right.
I can see, the other hand, if Xcel's trying to say what's the biggest bang for the buck, maybe I can, but I wish they would just be explicit about it, and just say, look, we want to go after just the raw conversion now until we've hit that saturation point, and then maybe we worry about controls, even though it may never happen. I can see the argument that's more, more bang for the buck.
Yeah, I think it should go along as a package though, so I was curious, do other folks out there, like, do you guys have comments on things that you want to see or important things? Matt, Jim?
Yeah, well, I was going to just mention the control myself too. And 5 years ago, we were wondering what we were going to do after LED, and my opinion of it was always that Xcel was going to move a lot of their money toward the control side once, the LED was at a certain percentage that they felt in the market. But with what you're saying, we always thought it should have been done at the same time just because of labor cost,
Right.
And it just never has happened. So I just wonder if that's not something that they're looking at down the road, is probably putting more into it once, there's a certain market share of LED that's done.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wish they'd be more explicit about what the strategy is. And if they really don't care, honestly, about controls, then say so. So we know that's not where their heart is.
I agree.
Jim? Do you have anything?
Scott, you had mentioned before the demand response objective that Xcel had, and I'm kind of, I think there's an opportunity to maybe do some lighting demand response, that sort of ties into these controls. And maybe one way to pay for network controls is if there's a demand response component to that, and they're willing to pay, $300 or $400 a kW for shedding load during, the new peak, which is closer to nighttime.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that, and that it solves a couple problems, I think, right? You can have you can factor it in with the demand response. You can, obviously it saves energy. It saves energy, and in addition to that, it becomes more functional for the customer. So it's got these kind of multiple layers of benefits to it that we probably need to try and convey to Xcel, I think, in what we're going to present to them. So I think this would be a good one to try and as one of the, I think, Howard, you said 3-ish type things that, in my opinion, this would be one of the ones that I would push for. But I was curious to hear what other folks had to say on it. I would push for the 25% bonuses to be implemented permanently, better rebates, and going even further on controls and network lighting controls, kind of taking it to that even further next level beyond the 25%. Because I'm not even sure a 25% permanent, and I don't even know, does the 25% bonus, I don't know off the top of my head, does it qualify under controls? I should know the answer to that, but I don't.
I don't think controls.
No.
There's a number of things that are excluded, and I think that controls were excluded too.
So I would push Xcel to, implement the 25% bonus for not just what they have on the list of 25% bonus qualifying things, but also for like exterior lighting and the controls then at that point as well. So I don't know if they'll be open to that, Howard, or not, but that would be the exterior lighting, in my opinion, is really like there's not much rebate. When I look at these projects and I look at how big the projects are versus how much rebate we get back from them, it's pretty paltry, the amount of rebate that factors in on the exterior projects. But I know Xcel's not as interested in that, obviously, but we've been talking that that peak is going to change, obviously.
Yeah. Is there still a lot of potential on exterior lighting?
Yes.
Quite a bit, I'd say. I mean, I don't know what the other members think, but I think it's at like maybe 50% saturation right now.
Yeah.
LED. Does anybody else have an opinion on that?
I would say that's good. That's close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. And just a quick recap. So because I did talk with Xcel the other day, the direct linear ambient, exterior lighting, and the controls, I believe, are the 3 items that aren't part of the 25%.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would push for Xcel to rebate controls on exterior lighting too, because that's a great opportunity as well, we think.
Yeah, they didn't seem to be, very open-minded about. They just basically said we have a surplus of energy at night, and it costs us money to throttle back on energy at nighttime. So there's no incentive for them to increase exterior lighting. Although we as members here, we were trying to think down the road, knowing that we're moving towards electrification of HVAC. And more EVs it seems like EVs are really taking off. And so we see that, that wintertime, nighttime peak, really being a significant force to reckon with. And so we're trying to get out in front of that by getting, all as much as possible nighttime lighting converted to LED, so that we've already reduced the demand. It's ready for when the grid is being taxed more a few years from now at nighttime, especially in winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question on the controls for the exterior. Are you talking about more timer controls, rather than not dusk till dawn, right? Because that's code anyway.
I'm talking about more either, you can have network controls on exterior, but also just as simple as like, dummy sensors on individual, area lights themselves, where if it doesn't see motion, it drops it to 25% or something like that. So, and again, I think that, I don't know how much Xcel cares about it, but that has multiple benefits, right? It can save energy. It can reduce the annoyance from the neighbors. Yeah. Light pollution, all sorts of things. So, but as it stands right now, they don't rebate any exterior lighting controls. I don't think, and I am pretty sure it fails the custom TRC when you try and put it through. So,
but no, I see a huge potential there for especially area lights. I mean, obviously you're not going to do that with road street lights, but you think about all the parking lots that are out there for shopping malls and office buildings and stuff that are burning all night long, and there's nobody there, and if someone does drive through, then the things could brighten up, and hey, it might get the cops' attention too, because why is someone there at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So anyway, I see lots of potential there, but yeah. Anyway, any other members want to chime in on exterior nighttime lighting at all?
Oh, the occupancies are a no-brainer in area lights.
Yeah.
And frankly, I mentioned that, there's now solar exterior lighting, which would take no energy from Xcel. However, I think they would probably hate that. So my big request was to get rid of the PPDF charts for horticultural, to begin looking at nighttime lighting because of the way electric cars are coming on and peaks might shift. But they didn't feel the timing was fast enough for this round. My thought is that we really got to get to the late adapters. There are still 12 T12s all over Denver and the surrounding area. I hate to say it, but if we could find a better way to incent for tubes, back of house, many buildings run these tubes 24/7 and never think to change them out because they're not seen by their visitors. But delamping is just a massive savings in a building. And I would like to see a specific rebate or incentive for delamping. So building operators could really get their arms around it. And then we should look at the cost of the projects to get to late adapters. If they're replacing ballasts, which we want to encourage them to do, they need expensive electricians. So, that's how we're going to get to them. The late adapters is, if they're willing to take out ballasts and use that type of bulb, we know that they're likely to have to bring in an electrician. Maybe we can find them another way to incent the project, not just the tube.
Well, and I think Xcel, Scott, sorry to interrupt, but they were kind of trying to go after the late adopters by they have the basically like they do for multifamily, they go in and they were offering to change the lamps for free. But the Xcel had a single contractor for their Clear Result did. That squeezed everybody. I mean, everybody should be participating in that. We should all have the same.
That may be true, but I can almost promise you that was just a bulb swap out, which means they weren't using the right type of.
Oh, they were using type A's?
And they were not replacing ballasts. Ballasts are heaters, man. They suck air conditioning, and we should make a push to get them out of Colorado, frankly.
I didn't know. I didn't know if it was for type. I thought it was for type B's, but anyway, ballast bypass. But
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is type B, from my recollection. I believe so.
Yeah,
I don't think they want type A because the persistence isn't there. Correct me if I'm wrong. But like if you put a type A in, like the customer could go back and put a fluorescent back in. And I think they try and avoid that if they can, is my understanding.
Why they would only award that to a single contractor exclusively when everybody who participates in the program should get the same benefit, whether it's, whatever it is, 30, 40, whatever bucks a fixture, that we may not be able to offer it for free, or I don't know what the compensation structure is, and I don't know who's doing the work, or how qualified they are. But my guess is, you don't have licensed electricians doing this stuff. But if they, imagine what kind of impact you could have on these slow adopters with fluorescent lights if we could offer 40, 50, whatever, depending on the number of lamps in the fixture. I mean, how could they say no if it's all but free?
Right.
If they're paying $5 a fixture or whatever their cost is.
Especially if all of us can participate in that program.
Exactly.
And push it out into the market. So yeah, I would agree.
Well, the only way you'd be able to do that is to do what Clear Result is doing, just bulb swap outs. It doesn't require electronic or electric certifications because there's no wiring involved. That means you're leaving the ballast.
For like multifamily, when they go in with A lamps and the like, you mean, Scott?
No, I was thinking tubes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the tubes are type Bs. I think they do have to do the minimal bypass work.
I've heard about this program, but I've never seen any detail. For the record, I've never seen any details on this program. I wish I had the details that we could read through it. But
they asked me when it was being considered as a pilot. I don't even know what the status of it is now. It could be shut down for all I know. I don't know. It's that kind of secretive, right? But I didn't come in with pricing that was somebody beat me on pricing, so I wasn't awarded it. I'm kind of glad. But anyway, it was just for the pilot.
By the way, since I have the floor for just a second,
Sure.
I'm organizing an event called the Rocky Mountain Building Maintenance and Engineering Show. It's going to be October 4th. Some of you may have seen some flyers flying around, but Xcel is having a full day of education at our event. At 10 o'clock is lighting rebates with Paige. At 11 o'clock is EV cars and infrastructures with Mike Tully. At 11 o'clock in the other room is Xcel's future plan. So they're going to describe in detail the plan they've just signed. At noon, we're doing HVAC related rebates. At 1 o'clock, building control system rebates. 2 o'clock, motors, pumps, and refrigeration. And I'm still looking for additional speakers, one on combined heat and power. This is a free event, so you're all welcome to come. And there's still a couple expo tables, exhibitor tables left, cheap, if anybody's interested in actually participating. So
what's the level of participation in that event?
Well, AEE had their last expo here in 2016. NMFT was scheduled for 2020 March, and I was supposed to speak at it. And of course, COVID. We haven't had a building convention in 5 years in Denver. And so far, about 130 tickets have been requested. They're free tickets, and the building engineers seem pretty stoked about it.
And it is in Denver. Where's it at?
It's at the PPA Center, probably the least expensive convention hall with free, accessible, easy parking.
I did see that, Scott. I didn't know that you had such a hand in it. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I guess
I'm
the
gonna rethink it.
Denver Lodging Engineers Association.
Real quick, because we're kind of running short
Yeah.
on time, though. I wanted to show, so the EEBC has created this nice form for us, and maybe Howard kind of helped put this together too, I'm not sure. But this nice document, if we have suggestions that we would fill out this form and turn them in, and we obviously have to try and get them in before October 3rd. In talking on the call today, it seems like, and speak up if I'm not correct in this, but it seems like, getting the bonuses permanently implemented would be a top priority. Controls, another one, and maybe exterior. What other, is there anything else we would want to try and submit to Xcel that anybody can think of?
Well, we had talked about
Besides
trying to,
the delamping, there's the delamping too. I know Scott wanted.
and we talked about greater rebates for more efficient fixtures. So DLC premium or whatever, the more efficient, the fewer watts used for the same category of fixture, maybe that would be an appropriate thing to have an additional bonus rebate for. And then we also talked about the concept of on-bill financing, which Xcel said they were toying with that idea too. There's no way we're going to get that done for next year, I'm assuming, Howard. That's maybe a longer.
Yeah, that was a popular one, but I'm with you. I don't think we're going to get that one pushed through.
Maybe the other one, maybe the redesign where we're reducing light fixtures with the new technology. We used to have a rebate for that, and that went away some years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. Right. We had talked about that. Those, where Howard, say you've got a room that has 20 fixtures in it now. You could, with LEDs with much better light distribution, you could get away with, say 15 or 16 or whatever in the same room, but it requires a whole lot more labor and planning and stuff. And there's no money in that at all. In fact, they're disincentivized because they get, you get a smaller rebate.
Putting in less.
Right, exactly. They get less rebate. They have to pay a lot more for all that additional labor.
Yep.
We talked about also increased rebate amounts for linear ambient fixtures, which, as Denise had said, that it's excluded from the bonus now. Anyway, those rebates are pretty paltry, $15.
And I would almost say with our proposal that we would correct me if I'm wrong, but suggest the 25% bonus across the board,
Yeah.
permitted extension and a 25% bonus, not just on these, whatever it is, 8 measures or however many it is that they've got, but like, all these different measures. Cause I'm
Yeah.
not really sure, I'm sure some of them maybe hit their peak more than others. Maybe that's why they did that, but
Yeah.
like across the board, it would make it a lot simpler and
Yeah.
more likely folks would adopt.
Okay.
Oh, another thing, Howard, that they could absolutely implement for next year, and they seem receptive to it, was the idea of eliminating in the prescriptive rebate form for all fixtures minimum wattage, because for a lot of fixtures they say to get your first tier of rebate, they set the wattage ranging from a certain minimum to say 50 watts. I'm just making this up. 50 watts to 70 watts gets the first rebates. So if you have the same fixture putting out the same amount of light that is a 45 or 40 watt fixture, it's more efficient. It would get 0 rebate right now under the prescriptive rebate program. So they seem open to that. That seems like it's just editing the form and putting 0 in. It's so easy. So that there's no excuse for not doing that.
Right. I think we believe that the market will correct itself on that one if you've done something foolish, if you will. You take out a 400 watt fixture and you put in a 8 watts or something like that. The customer's probably not going to be real happy with you. So, we all have a incentive to make the customer happy and give them the light that they need. So I'm not sure that the minimums, as Mike's saying, are really necessary.
Right.
Okay. All right, this has been real helpful. I have a bunch of notes. I'll take a look at the lighting survey, and if you are going to put anything into these forms, I'll get those as well.
Okay. And feel free to reach out to Scott and me personally, Howard, with any questions.
Sounds great.
All right.
Good talking to you guys.
Yeah, you too. Does anybody else have anything? Anybody else have anything they want to talk about? All right. Well, hopefully we can get something turned into Xcel in the next by October 3rd and get some results. Hopefully, it'll be awesome.
And we'll why don't we share? I can't see any reason why not. Whatever we submit to Xcel here, share it with the group.
Definitely, I think so. Right? Yeah.
Good deal.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
Yep.